My name is Thomas Grady, and I was assigned to Pine Hollow Fire Watchtower in the summer of 1996. If you're hearing this, I need you to listen. Really listen. Don't write me off like some washed-up ranger with too many ghost stories and not enough sleep. What happened to me up there wasn't some hallucination brought on by isolation or dehydration. This was real. As real as the static that still plays on my shortwave radio every night, even though the tower burned down 29 years ago. I remember the day I arrived, June 3rd. The chopper dropped me off on a grassy patch near the tower's base, the rotors kicking up dead pine needles like ashes in a windstorm. Pine Hollow was remote, tucked away in the northern stretch of the Black Ridge National Forest, a part of the map most people skip over. The kind of place where compasses twitch and animals go silent. My assignment was supposed to last 3 months. 3 months of quiet observation, weather reports, fire spotting, and logging daily entries into a field journal. I was looking forward to the solitude, honestly. My dad had passed away in April, and after the funeral, I couldn't stomach another office day in Charlotte surrounded by microwaved lunches and awkward condolences. I needed to disappear, even if just for a season. The tower itself was older than I expected. Wooden slats worn to splinters, iron bolts streaked orange with rust. But it stood firm, 30 feet up, overlooking a sea of dense, unbroken trees. Inside was a cot, a wood stove, a log book, a radio unit, and a pair of high-powered binoculars. On the desk sat a battered leather-bound field journal marked Ranger 019. The last entry was dated October 1995 and ended mid-sentence. Lights again, just past the tree line, same as, and then nothing. I didn't dwell on it. People forget to finish thoughts all the time. Or maybe they got transferred. Or worse, maybe they just got bored. My first few nights were uneventful, cold, clear, stars so bright they looked fake, like someone had poked holes in a painted ceiling. I'd scan the horizon every hour from dusk until dawn, logging temperatures, humidity, wind speed. The radio stayed quiet except for daily check-ins with Ranger HQ. But on the 7th night, something changed. I was writing in my own log when the wind died all at once. Not slowed, stopped. No creaking pines, no cicadas, no owls. Just silence. Then came a soft static from the radio. Too soft to be a signal, more like a breath.
I leaned closer. It hissed once, then whispered, "Out." I froze. The frequency was 144.7, the standard weather report channel. No one should have been transmitting on it. I chalked it up to interference, maybe a passing storm, even though the sky was clear. But I wrote it down anyway. June 10th, unidentified signal, out at 2:03 a.m. That was the first time I noticed the pattern. Always 2:03 a.m. Always just one word. Sometimes listen, sometimes come. Once it said journal. That one made me shut the radio off for 2 full days. And still, the transmission came through. Even with the damn radio unplugged. That's when I started digging. The old field journal had more in it than I realized. In the back were loose pages stuffed behind the back cover, stained with what looked like water damage or blood. One entry stood out. Pine Hollow is not alone. Transmission matches incident at Ravenwood Asylum. Ref. Blacklight case file number 47. Possible crossover event. Journal maybe anchor. I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I underlined Ravenwood. I remembered a story my dad used to tell, something about an abandoned asylum in Virginia, where people went missing after hearing whispers in the vents. I thought it was just one of his campfire tales, but now, with this journal and these whispers, I wasn't so sure.
The next few nights blurred together in a sleepless fog. I kept hearing things outside the tower, footsteps crunching pine needles. But every time I looked, nothing was there. Once, I spotted a figure down by the old creek trail, tall, motionless, almost blending into the trees. I watched it for 20 minutes through the binoculars. It never moved, not once. I turned away to grab the radio, and when I looked back, it was gone. I tried reporting it to HQ. The transmission went through, but all I got back was a garbled mess of static and my own voice repeating, "Come out, come out, come out," over and over again. I stopped using the radio after that. I don't know how they were mimicking my voice. I started sleeping during the day, barricading the hatch at night. I used nails and a hammer I found in the storage locker. Something about 2:03 a.m. made the air feel thick, like the atmosphere had changed. The static always came first, then the whisper. By the third week, I could predict it like clockwork. But one night, it didn't come at 2:03. It came early. I was watching the tree line around 1:47 a.m. when the journal began to hum. Not vibrate, hum. A low, bass-like frequency that seemed to rise from the ink itself. I opened it, and the pages were glowing faintly under the lantern light. My handwriting from days earlier was distorted, letters bending like heat waves. And on the next page, one I hadn't written on, there was a new entry. "You are not the first. You will not leave. Do not look at it." I heard the hatch creak. Once. Twice. Then the footsteps started again. Only now they were on the stairs, inside the tower. I didn't breathe. I grabbed the axe I kept by the stove and backed into the corner. Heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away, the footsteps stopped, just outside the room. I watched the door handle twist, slowly, deliberately, but it never opened. I waited until morning, axe clenched so tight my knuckles bled. When the sun rose, I opened the hatch. No one was there, but something had been. There were prints, bare feet, black ash smeared across the wooden floor, and the journal was gone. I found it later, sitting back on the desk like it had never moved. Only now the cover wasn't leather, it was darker, smooth, almost like skin. And the last page had changed. In my handwriting it read, "Chapter 1, entry complete." That's when I knew I wasn't alone up here. And this wasn't just some lookout tower anymore, it was a beacon, a receiver. And something had answered. I didn't sleep after that night. Not truly. I closed my eyes during the day and drifted in and out of something that resembled rest. But there was no peace to be found anymore in Pine Hollow Tower. Something had opened. Something had stepped inside. Every creak of the wood now sounded like a footstep I wasn't supposed to hear. Every gust of wind through the boards whispered things my ears didn't want to understand. I kept the journal shut after that. Sealed it in a burlap sack, wrapped it in a towel, shoved it in the bottom of my rucksack, and duct taped the whole thing closed. But that didn't stop it. Nothing could. It still made noise. I'd wake up in the early hours to find the rucksack vibrating gently, like a phone on silent. Once I found it unzipped, even though I knew I hadn't touched it. The sack was still tied, but the journal had somehow slipped out and was sitting on the cot, closed but humming, like it was waiting for me to open it again. I didn't. I wouldn't. Not again. But things got worse. Not louder, quieter. That was what terrified me most. The forest stopped making noise altogether. No birds, no insects, no rustle of wind through pine. Just pure, suffocating silence. It's impossible to explain how loud silence can feel until you're immersed in it like black water. Your thoughts echo. Your heartbeat becomes a war drum. I started broadcasting on the emergency band daily. Not for HQ, I knew they weren't hearing me. I was doing it for anyone, anything that might be listening. This is Fire Lookout Ranger Thomas Grady, ID number 1064. If you're within transmission range, please respond. Something is wrong at Pine Hollow. I repeat, something is... That's when the voices would bleed through. Not just mine anymore. Multiple voices, layered, stacked on top of each other like a choir of static. Some were my own. Some weren't. Some were older, raspier, like men from another era. Sometimes children. Sometimes something else. One night the radio just repeated a phrase over and over. The journal remembers what we forget. I recorded it, played it back, listened in headphones. The voices changed slightly each time. Once I swear it said, "You wrote this. You just don't know it yet." I wanted to leave, desperately. But the path was gone, not overgrown. Gone. I climbed down the tower one morning, packed everything I could carry and started walking east, toward the Ranger trailhead. I walked for 6 hours. Every landmark felt wrong. Trees out of place.
Fallen logs where none should be. At one point, I came across a clearing I swear I'd passed earlier. Only now, it had a single object sitting dead center. A wooden chair, turned away from me, facing nothing. On it sat the journal. I hadn't brought it. It was supposed to be sealed in the tower. I turned around immediately, and the forest shifted. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally. The canopy twisted, branches reshaped. The shadows deepened like someone had turned the saturation down on the sun itself. I walked faster, then jogged, then ran. Within 10 minutes, I was back at the base of Pine Hollow Tower. My bag was still there, my tracks too, only they'd been joined by others. Barefoot, heavy, clawed, and leading up the stairs. That night, the knocking started. Soft at first, just once around 2:03 a.m., then twice, then louder. It wasn't trying to break in, it was asking to come in. Knock, 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 knock. 5 times, always 5. Then a pause. Then the sound of someone dragging their hand across the outside wall. Long nails. Wood on skin scrape. I boarded the windows. I reinforced the hatch, but the knocking never stopped. Sometimes I'd wake up and it would be coming from inside the room, even though I was alone, or I thought I was. I started to hear breathing behind me. I'd spin around, axe in hand. Nothing. One night, I didn't turn around. I just listened. It was human, but it wasn't. Slow, ragged, as if its lungs weren't quite made for breathing anymore. And then I heard it whisper inches from my neck. "You broke the seal." I didn't scream. I don't know why. I just stood there, frozen, waiting to die, or worse. But nothing happened. When I turned, the room was empty again. The only thing different was the smell. Ash, charred paper, burnt ink. I found the journal smoldering on the desk, a single page half turned, revealing a sketch I hadn't drawn. It was of the tower, from the outside. Only, in the drawing, the windows were dark. Except for one. And in that window, something stood, watching. Tall, thin, unmoving.
The face was scratched out violently, over and over, until the paper tore. I didn't sleep again. I started marking the days on the wall in chalk. Day 17, day 18, day 19. Each day, the marks faded faster. By day 20, they were gone before I finished writing them. That was when I noticed something even worse. My own reflection. It wasn't following me. Every time I caught a glimpse in the lantern glass or the polished thermos, it lagged, just slightly. And then one night, it didn't copy me at all. I looked at it, and it smiled. My lips didn't move. Its smile was too wide, too long, and its eyes, Jesus, its eyes were all wrong. They weren't mine. They were black, like the journal, like the ash, like the voice on the radio. I smashed the thermos, covered the lantern with tape. I didn't want to see it anymore, but the damage was done. I realized I wasn't just seeing things, I was splitting. Like the journal was pulling me apart, writing me into the pages whether I wanted it or not. That night, it wrote for me. I woke to find a new entry in the journal, in my handwriting, only I hadn't written it. You are Thomas Grady. You are Ranger 019. You are not the first. We are many. We are watching. The wind picked up, the first sound in days, but it didn't feel like wind. It felt like breath, hundreds of them, whispering from the woods, from the tower walls, from inside the damn mattress. I pressed my ears shut, screamed, cried, but it didn't stop. And at the center of it all, beneath it, behind it, was one repeated phrase in perfect, terrifying clarity. Come out, come out, come out. Over and over, until 2:03 a.m. hit. And then, nothing. Silence again, worse than before. That was the night I knew I wouldn't leave Pine Hollow. Not fully, not as myself, maybe not as anything. And still, I kept writing, because deep down, I understood the truth. The journal wasn't recording what happened. It was deciding it, writing the story before I lived it, and I had already turned the page. I tried to burn it. The journal, I mean. I climbed down the tower with a can of kerosene I found under the bunk and walked into the clearing by the old comms relay. I doused the book, made sure it was soaked through, and then I lit a match. I remember thinking just for a second that I heard it whisper when the flame touched the paper, like the sound of ink screaming, but it didn't burn. It blackened around the edges, curled and hissed, but the center stayed intact, not untouched, not preserved, alive. The flame crawled over it like it was searching for a weak spot. Then it just went out. No smoke, no smell. The journal was dry, untouched. But heavier now, thicker, like it had grown. That was the last time I tried to fight it directly. After that, I stopped thinking of it as a book. It was something else, something ancient. It used the shape of a journal because that's what I could understand. But whatever was inside it, that wasn't ink, and it wasn't meant for human hands. I took it back up to the tower, set it on the desk, and watched it for hours. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I just sat there and stared, waiting for it to open on its own. At 2:03 a.m., it did. Pages fluttered like they were caught in a wind I couldn't feel, then stopped. A new entry. Not in my handwriting, not in English. Symbols, inked in deep red, almost glowing, etched into the paper like they were burned from the inside. Below them, in a thin scrawl that looked more like a carving than a pen stroke, was a translation. They have seen you. The door is open. That night, I saw the lights. Not distant headlights, not ranger search lamps. These were different, pale blue orbs, the size of baseballs, floating just above the forest floor, in perfect silence. There were 7 of them, They moved like they were searching, not hovering, hunting. I watched them from the window as they passed through the trees without disturbing a single branch. When they reached the clearing, they stopped, all at once, facing the tower. I backed away. I didn't want to look at them. I felt like if I stared too long, they'd notice me. Somehow they already had. I heard the first scream minutes later. Not mine, not human. A gurgling, high-pitched shriek that seemed to come from underground. Then another, and another. Something was rising. From the woods. From the journal. From me. I tried the radio. Static. I tried the backup battery unit. Dead. I even shouted into the night, but my voice didn't carry. It felt like sound had been swallowed whole by the tower. Then the lights moved again, rising this time, drifting upward toward the tower. I grabbed my axe and opened the hatch. There was no one on the stairs, but the light. The light came through the cracks in the wood. Blue, white beams sliding through the boards, bending toward me like fingers. I slammed the hatch and barricaded it again. It didn't matter. The lights passed through the tower like mist, like breath, like they weren't lights at all, but eyes. Watching. Waiting. One hovered inches from my face on the other side of the lantern glass. I could see into it, not just reflections, memories. My memories. Playing like film reels. Me as a child in my father's truck. Me reading horror books under the covers. Me crying at his funeral just 3 months ago. Then it changed. It showed me things I didn't recognize. A room with white padded walls. A mirror that didn't reflect. A door with no handle. And a man screaming from inside. I knew that room. I'd seen it before, in research about a place called Ravenwood Asylum. I'd written it off as an urban legend, but the journal had mentioned it too. Now I was seeing it, living it. And then I was inside it. Not physically, my body was still in the tower, but my mind was pulled through that orb, dragged into that room, forced into a memory that wasn't mine. I stood in a hallway, lit by flickering red bulbs. The walls were wet. The air buzzed with static. I could hear someone breathing behind me, but when I turned around, there was a mirror. I saw myself, only it wasn't me. It was wearing my face, but the eyes were glowing blue. It smiled and whispered, "You're the next page." I woke up screaming, back in the tower. The orb was gone. The other light too. I was alone again, or I thought I was, until I noticed the reflection in the lantern. It was still smiling. My face, but not me. It moved first. It blinked, while I didn't. I smashed the glass, again. I ran outside, climbed down the tower. I was done. I didn't care if the path was gone, I just started walking. The forest was dead silent. The air was thick. The trees leaned in close like they were listening. But I kept moving. I passed the same clearing again, now with 2 chairs, both facing away. One had the journal on it. The other had a ranger's hat. My hat. I wasn't wearing one. I hadn't brought one, but it was mine, embroidered with my ID, 1064. I left it there. I kept walking, until I saw the fire, orange glow in the distance. My heart surged. Rescue? A ranger team? I ran toward it, through brush, past twisted stumps and clawed-out trees, until I reached the source. My tower. burning. Flames eating the wooden supports, the stairs crackling into ash, and yet it was still standing. Inside the flame, I saw myself, at the window, watching, not panicked, not burning, just staring. The other me looked down at me, and I swear it nodded. I backed away, tripped over something. The journal, open to a page I'd never seen, blank, except for one phrase in my handwriting, Chapter 3, entry complete. The fire didn't spread, it just stayed on the tower, crackling like a funeral pyre for something long dead or something still waiting to be born. I stood there for hours until the flames died out and the structure collapsed into cinders. But when I turned back toward the trail, the tower was there again, unburned, untouched, lights in the windows, radio humming, journal on the desk, waiting for me. I didn't go back. Not right away. I walked the opposite direction, found a creek, followed it. Eventually, after what felt like days, I found a road, or what used to be a road, overgrown, cracked, forgotten. And there, in the center of it, was a sign I'd never seen before, a black steel plaque bolted into the stone, property of the Blacklight Foundation. Unauthorized access is prohibited. All journal activity is monitored. If you see something, do not write it down. I turned around, and the forest was gone, replaced by a room, sterile, white, with a mirror. And a voice over the intercom said, "Subject 019 has entered Phase 4. Prepare the next chapter." I don't know how long I was in the room, the white one with the mirror. There was no door, no clock, no sound, just that mirror and the voice that sometimes spoke through the ceiling. Like God whispering in corporate policy. They called me Subject 019. They said I had crossed resonance thresholds. They said I was now partially journal-bound. But they never said who they were. At first, I thought it was government, military, some backwoods branch of FEMA or Homeland Security, dealing with paranormal events. But the more they spoke, the less it sounded like orders and more like worship. "The journal selected you," one of them said through the static. "That means you've seen the spine." I didn't know what they meant, not until they rolled the table in. It was stainless steel. On it sat the journal, my journal, but now completely transformed. The leather cover was gone. In its place was black, ridged flesh, like a centipede's back stitched into a book. It pulsed slightly, like it was breathing. The pages, once white, were now yellowed, old, fragile looking. But when I leaned in, the symbols moved. Ink crawled along the fibers like ants, and I realized they were still being written. "It's still writing me," I said aloud. The voice over the speaker didn't answer. Instead, it played a sound file. It was my own voice. Not a recording I remembered making, just 6 words. "Come out. It's your turn now." Then the mirror rippled, like water. I backed away. I didn't want to see the reflection again. Not the wrong one, the grinning one. But it was already too late. The mirror didn't show me at all anymore. It showed the tower, burning again, and inside it, me, at the window, still watching, still waiting. Then the fire peeled away, and something rose from the ashes. Tall, humanoid, wrapped in smoke, with glowing blue eyes and hands made of paper, pages, fluttering constantly like wings. It pointed at me, and the mirror cracked. I blacked out. When I woke, I was lying in the forest again, Pine Hollow, but different. The trees were too tall, the stars were wrong, and there was a new sound, like gears grinding behind the sky, a mechanical whirring that never stopped. The journal lay open on my chest. A new page had been written. Thomas Grady is now operational. I didn't know what that meant until I stood up and saw the tower. Not burned, not wooden, but metal. Rebuilt, reinforced, like a replica or a testing site. The hatch was already open. I climbed. I didn't want to, but my body moved on its own, like I was being controlled, no, piloted. When I reached the top, I looked out across the woods and saw other towers, 10 of them, spaced evenly apart, all glowing faintly, and then I heard the radios click on, one by one. This is Subject 007, tower stable. Subject 013 reporting, skyline distortion at 84%. Subject 022 experiencing full recursion. Journal confirmed active. Then the final voice spoke, not through the radio but through the journal itself. In the deepest, calmest tone I've ever heard. You are not here to survive. You are here to document. The tower lit up, screens activated, pages flipped themselves. A digital interface glowed to life along the walls. This wasn't a watchtower anymore. It was a listening post, a collector, built to receive transmissions from somewhere else, from other versions of me, other universes, other towers, other journals. The pages were syncing across realities. I saw entries I never wrote, by people I'd never been. A woman named Jordan in Ravenwood, a man named Colin in Richmond hearing whispers at 2:03 a.m., a terrified blonde named Lucy hiding in an apartment with a knife. Their stories, their fears, their transmissions, all written here. And I finally understood what the journal really was. A map of fear, not just recording it, spreading it, shaping it, creating nodes of experience across time and space, anchoring the same events to different people, like it was building a network, a web. And each of us, Colin, Jordan, Lucy, me, we weren't just victims. We were hosts, writers, field agents for something far larger than we understood, something that existed behind the veil of the world, something that whispered only when the light was gone. The journal didn't possess people. It made them transmitters. And once it was finished writing you, it started broadcasting you to others. That's what the fire was. That's what the lights were. That's why the reflection smiled. Because it wasn't a copy, it was a signal. A new transmission being received in someone else's tower, right now. And the moment I realized all of this, the radio crackled again. Subject 019, the voice said. Please confirm journal is stable. I looked at it. It opened on its own, and the words burned themselves into the page. Chapter 4. Entry complete. But then, one more line appeared. A question, not from me, not from the voice, from someone else, written in a different hand, in blood-red ink. Who is writing your story?